Hi there, welcome to That Board Game Show. My name is James Wood, and today I'm going to show you Nations the Dice Game, specifically the solo variant, including the Unrest Expansion. In Nations the Dice Game, each player assumes the role of a different historical nation. During the course of the game, we're going to take those nations from the very beginnings of civilization, all the way up until the point where we have built some magnificent monuments, conquered vast amounts of territory, and established thriving cities and capitals around the world. And we're going to do all of this by rolling lots and lots of dice. So, let's head down to the table and I'll show you how it plays. Having included the Unrest expansion, I have these extra green dice over here. There are some additional chits in this pile over here, and there are also a lot more starting nations to choose from. Today, I have chosen to play the Vikings, because I actually have some Viking heritage running through my veins, having come from Norwegian descent, so I thought that a fairly fitting, appropriate nation for me to play. And I think the best way to show you how Nations plays is to just dive in with the first turn. So the first thing we're going to do, which is unique to the solo mode, is roll this blue die over here. And this is going to generate some books for the AI player. I'm going to roll that over there. And they rolled 2 stone, so they don't actually generate any books. Had they rolled 3 books there, or perhaps 2 books there, then we would advance their tracker along this. And at the end of each round, we score for whoever has the most books in that round. Books representing the study and intellectual advancement of your nation. So we've done that. We rolled a double stone, so they didn't actually advance their intellect at all in this round. And then the next thing we do is what you would do in a normal multiplayer game. You pick up the dice in front of you, which are determined by your starting buildings here. So we've got a berserker, a stave church, a quarry, and a farm. And each of those gives me 1 white die. I also have these starting chits, which is a money, a food, and a reroll token. So the only way you can reroll dice in this game is with these reroll tokens. So that's very valuable. You'll see on some of the other nations that you get different starting chits and a different spread of dice. Like Poland here, you get an extra book, and the distribution of the boards is a little bit different. Now, this is specific to the Unrest expansion. The Vikings, Poland, and all of these are double-sided. So you'll see that these are the extra ones, and then these are the tiles that come in the standard game. So you'll see that they're all actually the same. They're not double-sided, and they all have the same starting dice and starting chits. So that's one of the things the expansion added, was these extra boards with a lot more variety in your starting setup, giving it a bit more asymmetry and each player a slightly unique feel to the game. So the first thing we're going to do is roll our dice. Give them a shake up and let's roll them over here. Okay, so I have got a stone, a money, a book, and a food. Now I have to decide how I'm going to use these. So what you can do on a turn, and this is true in the multiplayer or the single player game, is you can either buy a tile from the central board over here using gold. So at the moment I have 2 gold, which means I can afford anything from this second row. Or I could buy 2 tiles from this bottom row. Or instead of buying a tile, you can re-roll your dice by spending one of these re-roll tokens. Now this re-roll token here is a little bit special. You'll see it's got these orange arrows and a little starburst in the middle, as compared to a normal reroll token over here, which just has the black arrows. So typically if you use a reroll token like this, that is your entire turn. You would spend a token, putting it into this area here, which is where you put all your spent tokens or dice, reroll any number of dice that you want, and then that's your turn, it's over. So in a multiplayer game, a player would proceed to the next player. In a solo game, player would proceed to the neutral player. In this instance, I've actually started with the special reroll token. That allows me to reroll my dice and still take a normal turn. So let's look at my dice and see if I want to re-roll anything. I've got this one book here. That would probably be a good idea to try getting the lead over there. And you'll see we each start with one book over here, and this is the victory points track down here. And you'll see this purple tile over here. These are end of round objectives. So if by the end of the round I can generate 3 food, I will get 3 points. If I can also generate 1 warfare, I will get 1 point. So those are things I need to keep in mind while re-rolling or not re-rolling my dice to decide what I need. So it's probably a good idea to buy some tiles. Let's do that. I will spend my 1 white die over there, move it to my spent area, and I will buy this synagogue. So I'll take the synagogue and I will place it over here. Let's replace my stave church with the synagogue. You can replace any building. And now you'll see I covered over this white die with an orange die. So that goes over there. I discard this white die. I've spent that. I don't get to use that anymore. And I replace it with an orange die, which I get to immediately roll and possibly use on my next turn. So that gets rolled. That is 3 gold. So you'll see all of these dice have different values, and some of them can be really powerful. Like this giving you 3 gold with 1 die is quite significant. It could have given me 1 food, or 2 gold, or 1 gold. So that there is the best possible result I could get with this orange die. Okay, so that was the end of my turn. I did one thing. You can always only ever do one thing on your turn, and then play proceeds to the next player. In this instance, because I'm playing solo, play proceeds to the neutral player, which is represented by rolling this d4. Now this isn't going to show up too well on camera, unfortunately, so I'll just have to tell you what it is. We rolled a 2. So each time you roll this d4, you're going to look at the number, which in this case is a 2, and you're going to remove the lowest tile in that column. So column 2 over here, we remove this, and that is discarded out of the game, not available for anyone to build. So this is representing other players taking these tiles on their turns. That is the end of the neutral player's turn. Player proceeds back to me. So we'll put this d4 back up there. And now I have to choose. Do I want to use these dice? Do I maybe want to try and build up towards this 3-point food bonus? And one other thing that I need to be keeping in mind is this tile over here. This is another element introduced with the Unrest expansion. And to understand what those do, we have this sheet in the rulebook, which explains what each of these are. So these are bonus tiles which affect that particular round of play, and each round we draw a new one. Now, these are the effects over here for multiplayer. So for instance, this one over here, the player who passes last gets 2 victory points. So what you can do on your turn, instead of buying a tile or re-rolling your dice, is pass. You can say, I'm done, I'm not taking any more actions this round. And then you will turn your round overview card over like so to indicate that you have passed. So if I was playing a multiplayer game, the first player to pass will get 2 bonus points. Since I'm not playing the multiplayer game, this tile works a little differently. In this instance, playing solo, if all pass first tiles are removed when you pass, you get +2 victory points. What does that mean? How that works is, as I remove these tiles, as you saw, I rolled the d4 and I removed a tile from a column. Once I've removed all 3 tiles from a column, if I roll that number, so say I've removed all the 2s and I roll a 2, I will remove that pass first tile. And that will generate 1 book for the neutral player. Again, these tiles here and these tiles here are introduced in the Unrest expansion. So all of these little extra elements to think about and plan are part of that expansion. And you're reminded of that by the little icon in the corner here. You've got this little U in the corner of all the tiles that were introduced with the expansion, like this one here, which gives you a green die. The green dice weren't present in the original game, so you've got the little U over there. And so in this instance, usually you want to pass early and get one of these benefits. But in this case, because of that tile over there, I actually want to bide my time. I want to do as many things as possible and let the neutral player pass first so that I can get that bonus. So each time I flip over a new one of those, I'll just reference over here and we'll see what it does. Let's see, I've got lots of gold, so it probably makes sense to buy one of these tiles up at the top there. Aha, okay, here's a plan. I'm going to use those 3 gold on that single die to buy the hanging gardens over here. Put that into my construction area. So now this is a wonder. This is one of the wonders of the world that I'm attempting to construct. In order to construct it, in order to move it from my construction zone into the constructed area off to the side here, I have to use stone. So on my next turn, I'll be able to spend this 1 stone to construct the hanging gardens, gaining me 1 point at the end of the game, and giving me another food chit, which will help towards this end of round objective. So that was a pretty good turn, I think. Let's roll the d4 for the neutral player over there. And they've rolled 2 again. You're just going to have to take my word for it because neither of my cameras can see this die. So we remove this tile from the second column and I play another turn. So chances of me actually passing last in this instance, I think are pretty slim because I want to reserve these things. I'm not going to be doing that many turns. Let me build the hanging gardens over here. I'll use that 1 stone, build the hanging gardens. And that will immediately generate me 1 food chit. So I pick that up from the pool over there, add it to my supply. And now I have the 3 food I need for that end of round objective. That was my turn. Neutral player goes and they roll 2 again. My goodness. Right, now they've removed that. I've got a choice to make. I could pass at this point. And when you pass first with the Unrest expansion, you get to claim one of these tokens. And these give you bonuses at the end of the round. So if I pass now, I will roll the die 1 more time for the neutral player. Because I'm always the first player, they always take 1 turn after me. And then they will potentially claim one of these tiles. Unless I pass now and I take this book token, which will give me quite a good head start on the book track. Maybe I should take a risk and see what happens if I don't pass just yet. I maybe want to reroll this. Actually, I can do that because I've got this special reroll token, so I can pick that up and I can reroll this book. What I'm hoping for is a sword, so I can get that bonus as well. So let's reroll this, and it turned into a book. Were that a normal reroll token, that would have been my entire turn, but because it's the special one, I can now choose. Do I buy a tile, build a wonder, or reroll? I have no wonders under construction. I do have this 1 money, which isn't actually helpful because down here you'll see that this has got the sword cost over there. So that needs swords to conquer that territory. And I don't have any swords, so I can't get that. And 1 money can't get me either of these tiles. So I am actually going to pass right now. And I am going to take this sword over here. And that is the end of my turn. I passed, I took a bonus tile. We roll for the neutral player just to see what they do. They remove that, which doesn't really matter because it's the end of the round anyway. And now we check end of round scoring. So the first thing we do is we produce and score books. So I produce 1 book over here. So I move up 1 on the track. And in a solo or 2-player game, you get 2 points if you are in the lead on the book track. In a multiplayer game, you get 1 point per player behind you on the book track. So in this instance, playing solo, I'm in the lead, only just. And so I will get 2 points, which I'll mark over there. Then we check for famine. That is what this represents. We have to provide enough food to keep our people happy. I have enough food, so I'll move these over to here. 1, 2, 3 food. That has provided that requirement, so I get 3 points. 1, 2, 3. I have healthy, happy, fed people. The next thing we would check is player order. And if playing multiplayer, whoever produced the most warfare, most swords, will gain the first player card. So there are multiple cards like this with 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the first player card will go to the player who produced the most swords. In the solo game, that doesn't apply, so we skip over that step. And then we proceed to war. We send our troops off to war. I have this 1 token, which is the 1 I need for there. So we'll just put that back at the top and gain 1 point. And that is the end of round 1. So now I'll just set up for round 2 and show you a few turns of that. And then I think that'll give you a pretty good idea of how Nations the Dice game plays. So to set up for round 2, we will discard this tile and flip over a new one from this deck. Pass first tiles count as 2 food, warfare, or books instead of 1. So for whoever passes first, as long as this bonus tile is visible, you get double when you pass first. In the solo game, the effect of the pass first tiles are increased to 2, both for the player and the shadow. Oh, that's right, they call the neutral player in this the shadow player, or shadow nation. How these work in the solo game, if the neutral player, the shadow, gains one of these tiles, it increases that cost for me. So, for instance, if at the end of that last round, they had claimed this food tile, I would have had to produce 4 food, not 3, at the end of the round. So it really does incentivize you to do your actions really quickly and get these pass first tokens, especially now with this one. We discard all the level 1 tiles that weren't claimed. We come over here and we gain new tiles from the level 2 stack, or error 2, I think they call it. And we put these out at random. And you'll see that these level 2 tiles are all significantly better than the level 1 tiles were. Or error 1, error 2. I keep forgetting the proper terminology. We then discard this objective tile and reveal a new one from error 2. Putting that over there. And now, this is unique to the solo game. We will roll 2 blue dice and advance the shadow player on the book track by however many books are rolled over here. So let's roll these down there. And they rolled a stone and a book. They've only got 1 book, so we are tied, which would mean nobody would score any points. My dice come back down to me over here. My chits come back into my play area. And we're all set for round 2. And I take the first turn. The first thing everybody does on a round is roll your dice. Wow. Okay, I am swimming in gold. That doesn't really help me at this stage, so let's see. I am going to immediately use my special reroll token so that I can reroll and still take a normal turn. Definitely going to reroll this gold die because that can only get better. Do I want to reroll these and try get food? Let's see, we don't need a lot of food, but we do need a lot of fighting, and I've got the food over there. Let's hang on to one of these gold and we'll reroll these 2. And now this is it. Whatever I roll now, I'm stuck with for the rest of the round. Okay, loads of food. That is even worse. Because I don't need loads of food. So now that informs what I'm going to do. Okay, here's a way you can actually reroll. I'm going to spend 2 gold over there. And I'm going to gain one of these 2. Let's gain this longship. I think that looks like fun. We'll build up our army a little bit. And I am the Vikings after all. What kind of Viking would I be without a longship? That breaks one of my existing white dice, so that gets removed from my pool. But then I get a new white dice and a red die. So those come out of the pool and I get to roll them. So these are ways you can sort of keep your turns ticking over. And I got a stone and a sword. And those aren't helpful, especially on this red die. This red die can be up to 3 swords, and I rolled a single stone. And I can't even re-roll it. So that was a fail. We now roll the d4 for the shadow player, and they will take from the 3 column. Let's use what I've got available. I'm going to spend this 1 coin, and I'm going to buy the Maui statues. Put those into my construction area because I've got this 1 stone. I might as well put it to use. And that was it. Bought a tile. My turn is done. The shadow player rolls a 2 and recruits Genghis Khan to their nation, which is a shame because I would have loved to get that tile with those extra reroll tokens. In fact, I was thinking about getting that earlier and I didn't. Now, I could build that right away, but there's no real point because I should rather buy tiles out here if I can, which I can't because I have no money and I have no way to get more money. So that's really not good. And I have no way to get more swords. Wow, this is a terrible second round. My goodness. Well, that is that then. I'm going to have to just use this stone and build the Maui statues, because there's no reason not to. Roll the die for the shadow player. They roll a 3, discard the 3, and then I might as well pass first. Aha! Okay, I have a saving grace. Because of this bonus tile, thank you Unrest Expansion, I can now claim this sword, because I'm going to pass right now, because there's nothing more I can do with the dice I have. And this sword counts as 2, which means I now have the requisite amount of swords for the warfare stage at the end of the round scoring. Shadow player does get one more turn, but it's nothing terrible they can do. They take from column 1. Basically, what could happen in that last turn, if, say, for instance, this tile was gone, it's all going to get discarded now anyway, and they rolled a 3, which I can't get on the default there. If they rolled a 3, they would then claim that, even if I had already passed. So in a multiplayer game, whoever passes first gets first pick of these tiles, and then the next player to pass gets the next pick, and so on. In the solo game, the shadow player can actually get multiples of these. So in a normal game, you only get 1 as a player, but in the solo game, the shadow player can get numerous tiles of these, increasing their generation of resources. So it is now the end of the round, and we go through end of round scoring. We produce and score books. I produce no books. They only produce 1, so nobody scores anything because nobody's in the lead there. You'll see in this that I'm not actually moving the shadow player's score at all. And that's because in the solo game, they don't actually score any points. All the shadow player does is prevent me from scoring points on the book track if they happen to be equal with or ahead, or they're removing tiles from the central display here, because that's pretty much all the other players do in a multiplayer game. You're all pretty much doing your own thing, and the only real interaction and interference you can experience from other players is by them taking tiles that you maybe want, and also passing at the right time and all that. So you're really just trying to achieve your best possible score. Nobody scored for books. We check famine. I have produced way more food than my people needed, so I can get 2 points over there. 1, 2. We would change player order in a multiplayer game. We do not in the solo. And then we check for warfare. They need 3. I have 1 plus 2 because of the bonus tile. So I have enough there. I get 2 points. 1, 2. And then that's the end of the round. We will remove these tiles, place the sword back at the top there, bring out new tiles for error 3, throw them out at random. You'll see these are all also pretty good, quite similar to the error 2 tiles actually. And I think I'll stop there because that gives you a pretty good sense of how the game plays. We would play rounds 3 and 4, tally up your final score and see how well you did. In a multiplayer game, whoever has the most points wins. In a solo game, you check this little Hall of Fame track over here on the side, which is slightly different in the Unrest expansion. In the standard game, there is also a solo mode with a Hall of Fame, but the point structure is just a little bit different because the Unrest expansion is giving you more dice and more ways to score. One thing I didn't get a chance to show you, and perhaps I should have bought one of these tiles just so I could, is these green dice. So now these are part of the Unrest expansion, and you'll see that they all give you pretty good stuff. They're doubles on all faces. You can get 2 stone, 2 gold, 2 books, 2 swords, 2 food, or this unrest symbol. If you roll this, if you roll your dice and you get a white unrest fist, all you can do on your turn is re-roll that die, or spend it without any benefit to then use your other dice. So it's a bit of a gamble. It can pay off pretty big because if you've got a few of these, they can double up and you can get a lot of resources. But they can also hinder you quite a bit because what can happen if you roll that locks all your other dice. So you have to spend an entire turn re-rolling this and hoping you don't roll another unrest. Or you have to simply give up that die, not be able to use any of its benefits, and then you can carry on as per normal. So that's quite a fun extra element introduced in the expansion. So I think that gives you a really good sense of how Nations the Dice game plays. It's very similar, as I said, with the solo mode or the multiplayer game, and it's a lot of fun to be rolling your dice and building up your nation and adding these tiles and getting more dice, and there's quite a lot of additional layers and strategies and things you can think about. And with that, I will say thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show.